Story 1. People who abuse elderly patients in nursing homes are a serious concern. I worked as a nurse for 6 years and had to report a coworker who was deliberately neglecting to administer pain medication to the residents she disliked. It makes me angry just thinking about it. Story 2. Hurting a child through physical abuse is beyond cruel. I have no respect for people who do that. It is something I truly cannot stand. Story 3. Friends who constantly make me feel bad. I have learned to cut off people who belittle or mock me and think it is funny. Story 4. People who are deliberately cruel understand that they are hurting others and either take pleasure in it or are indifferent to the pain they cause. Story 5. People who are cruel and hurtful to the weak and vulnerable, including children, the sick, the elderly, the poor, the downtrodden, and animals, display a lack of compassion and empathy. Story 6. People who are unaware of their actions that hurt others often do not realize how damaging their behavior can be. It is essential to acknowledge the impact of their actions on others. They continue to project their insecurities onto others without considering how this affects their feelings. Story 7. Anyone who harms children through sexual, physical, emotional, or mental abuse, including exploitation, is to be condemned. Story 8. People who intentionally hurt others and feel no remorse, especially when it involves betrayal of trust, such as manipulating someone who cared about them, are problematic. I can understand mistakes, but cruelty without accountability is where I draw the line. Story 9. Hypocritical individuals who consistently turn the tables and portray themselves as victims rather than as an actually oppressed group. This applies to many communities, but it is especially relevant to me as a lesbian given the current attempts to erase our existence. Story 10. Those who abuse others unable to defend themselves, including children, animals, the elderly, and the poor and homeless, are committing harmful acts. Story 11. People who abuse those who cannot defend themselves, including children from low-income families, individuals with disabilities, animals, the elderly, and the disadvantaged, display a serious moral failing. Story 12. People you co-sign for with a car loan who quit making payments can cause you significant problems and then act as if it is all your fault. Never co-sign for anyone, especially family, or enter into a joint venture because it will ultimately fall back on you. Story 13. I can forgive anyone. It may not change anything. Any change in our relationship is solely dependent on their behavior, choices, and acknowledgement. It may not change my behavior. I will still do what is necessary. I have only twice been in a situation where I may have had to act in self-defense. I could have done that and still forgiven the individual. Forgiveness is about me, my mental, emotional, and spiritual state. It is not about the relationship. Do not confuse forgiveness with reconciliation or the perpetuation of hierarchy. Story 14. When I have forgiven them repeatedly in the hopes they would change, only to be disappointed. Now, if someone shows me who they are, I believe it. I will not hold a grudge or hate in my heart for them, but they will not have access to me again. Story 15. Abusers are entitled individuals who don't realize the impact of their words. People who enjoy hurting others physically, who even gave you the right to do that. And finally, there are those who conceive without planning and choose to abandon their children casually. Story 16. People who always see themselves as the victim, regardless of the situation, often have an excuse for being late or failing to keep a promise. Please keep your distance. I do not have the time or patience for this behavior. Story 17. People who believed false rumors about me. I showed up to a job interview, and the interviewer told me I was fabricating my work history. Story 18. There is almost no one I cannot forgive. I am not religious in the sense of belonging to a specific group. However, there is a difference between forgiving someone, which I view as understanding them, and wanting to be friends, have a close relationship, or anything else with them. You live and learn. It is very rare to find an individual who does not possess positive attributes. Story 19. I cannot forgive people who hurt others and never feel sorry for it. Those who cause pain and walk away as if nothing happened. Story 20. Bullies who tormented me motivated me. With each repetition in the gym, I envision a brutal end for them. Being more financially successful than I assume they are helps as well. Story 21. Mega Republicans. I know many of you are rolling your eyes, but if you can understand why right now is bad, then you shouldn't have much trouble understanding what it's been like to be a person of color over the last decade. Right now is undeniably bad unless you are a Republican. My boss lost $3,000 from his retirement account, and town halls are erupting across the nation. I would personally say, though appreciated, this is a mark of selfishness. Think about it. Things didn't just randomly get bad one day. There have been years of buildup, and that buildup was just as harmful. People are finally seeing it was never about the economy. Otherwise, it wouldn't have been destroyed. It was never about illegal immigrants. Otherwise, there would be no revoking of visas and deporting of citizens. Many of you are not confronting that lie on a deeper level. There are real people who had to deal with that rhetoric you are just now complaining about because it is impacting you. It is not just about getting your retirement account back. It also has to be about fixing the communities that were destroyed because you were told it would make your retirement account bigger, not smaller. Half of this country threw the other half under the bus for a leg up, only to end up on the same level. If you got that leg up, you would never have to worry about us again. But too bad you fell for it once again and got caught in the act. Should I treat people who tried to vote my rights away with kindness? Imagine I voted for someone who said to harm all white people and then tried to be friends with you. That wouldn't go down well, would it? I really believe as a country we are going to have to do some serious work, and I would argue that this work needs to mirror the process of denazification. Many of you have no idea just how bad this ideology has infected our culture as a nation. You've all been told to ignore the symptoms and that anyone complaining is lying to you, but just take a second to think about what it's like to be a transgender person and watch half the country vote to take your rights away. Some of you want to ignore this so badly that you will criticize me for being political here, but you know I am right. We are doomed if we don't fix this. There is a significant portion of this country horrified by the other half because they have been brainwashed, and there is another portion that believes the vote they cast to horrify half the country was just that, a vote and nothing more. You all need to be held responsible, end of story. I'm not saying to knock on doors and lock people up, but you spend a good 10 or more years calling anyone who disagreed with you slurs. People warned you that this exact thing would happen, and you voted how you did anyway. You sent several hundred people to a concentration camp with no due process. The least you can do is unlearn the harmful ideas you've absorbed over the years and admit you were wrong. Honestly, this should have happened the moment your group decided to attempt a coup, but the mainstream decided to give you another chance just to somehow attempt another coup. Are you kidding me? You expect us to tolerate such an undemocratic group in this democracy? Story 22. Voting for a candidate in 2024, especially after everything that has happened, reflects poorly on your character. Some individuals wait until a topic is brought up to criticize you and point out your mistakes. Why didn't they express their feelings earlier? It seems they have been holding onto that resentment. Story 23. People who claim to love animals, such as dogs and cats, but refuse to acknowledge their hypocrisy by continuing to eat them. How can you comment on videos of baby animals saying how cute they are, and then literally pay for them to be killed? Story 24. Child abusers, pedophiles, rapists, murderers, and scam artists. Female friends who steal your husband or boyfriend. Story 25. The girls I liked will ignore me until I date someone, then contact me. Talking too loudly during movies or TV shows. Story 26. A passive-aggressive family member instigated a cruel betrayal that could ruin my life and cause alienation from family due to their blind following without justification. I have moved on but will never forget the extreme harm this person caused. I cannot bring myself to forgive them, but I have accepted reality and choose not to have them in my life. It is extremely painful. Story 27. Someone who rapes, kills, or uses violence towards others is either demonic or defective and will never change. Story 28. Someone who spends time making me comfortable enough to be vulnerable with them, only to throw that vulnerability in my face or use it to speak negatively about me to others. Story 29. My brother Jason is a drug addict. We all hoped he would get better once he had his baby, but that hasn't happened. We believed he was turning his life around, But one day when I went to his house, I found him and his girlfriend passed out in the living room, while his 3-month-old baby was crying face down on the floor. I will never forgive him for what he has put my niece through. Story 30. One who financially abused our parent to fund a gambling addiction to the tune of over $400,000, then confessed with a lie. When the real truth was discovered, this sibling started throwing accusations of harassment and slander, and managed to convince the parent to live with them in the residence they had persuaded the parent to sign over. The parent started believing the lies that we were trying to get her money, told the police to stop their investigation, and then passed away a year ago today, leaving that sibling as the executor. The sibling then attempted to withdraw whatever money was left, but by this point, the brokerage was aware of the situation and did not allow it. Now, after spending over $5,000 out of my own pocket, I am the executor and have discovered there was an additional $57,000 loan taken out in the parent's name, with funds transferred directly to the sibling. So now I have to contest that, or it will be taken out of the remaining estate. We will be down to 5 digits by then, and who knows what other issues will arise. In summary, my sibling manipulated and stole from the family, turned the parent against her accusers, and then cut off communication with us. People wonder why I am sometimes angry. Story 31. Scammers, abusers, and individuals who glorify violence, as well as those who sympathize with others and rationalize their behavior, are prevalent on Reddit. Story 32. Personally, I have been able to forgive everyone who has hurt, scared, or abused me. My empathy is both a gift and a curse. I can see suffering in others and genuinely feel for them, broken childhoods, addictions, and more, but that doesn't mean I should seek further hurt in trying to heal them. People who do not recognize any flaws in their actions are not willing to change, either for the betterment of others or themselves. I deserve kindness, respect, communication, compassion, and accountability, just as I give those qualities to others. As for the world stage, that is something I need to contemplate deeply because there are tremendous horrors out there. I strive to do good and surround myself with others who also try their best. Story 33. Close friends who suddenly cut ties are disappointing. I'm not saying I won't forgive them. Story 34. People who cannot apologize do not truly change if they do not acknowledge their bad behavior to begin with. Story 35. Betrayal. I was used by male friends to pursue some of my female friends because they did not know how to build relationships with women beyond romantic ones. Long story short, I am still friends with the girls. The guys are no longer in my life. It is frustrating when people act surprised when you remind them to pay you back. I also find it disappointing when people forget their friends once they enter a relationship. I can understand it happening once or maybe twice, but a pattern emerges when they only reach out when they are single. Story 36. 1. Child predators. 2. Narcissists. 3. Racists. 4. Corrupt police officers, judges, prosecutors, and lawyers. 5. Cheaters. 6. Aggressive drivers. 7. Drivers who linger in the left lane. Online bullies. Story 37. Racists, liars, and mean-spirited in general. All these answers were inspired by my mother-in-law. It is safe to say I don't talk to her anymore. Story 38. Teachers who mistreated me in elementary school shaped me into the person I was criticized for over 2 decades. Story 39. When people show no remorse for their actions, it is much easier to forgive someone who is genuinely willing to change. Story 40. I cannot forgive individuals who are willing to jeopardize the financial stability of millions for the sake of their own ambitions. Story 41. My father is an addict. Throughout our lives, he was a narcissistic person who could do no wrong. I can't understand why his children won't talk to him. He has never had any responsibilities because our grandparents, his parents, raised us without any income from him. We would be starving and struggling while he spent his money on women and drugs. Meanwhile, I held 2 jobs at 14 while attending high school to help with food and clothing. There were so many frightening moments growing up. Meth transforms a person into someone entirely different. I think I could forgive him if he could say sorry, acknowledge that I did a good job, and admit that he is a failure and not a good person. But no, he believes he can do no wrong. It is always everyone else's fault. Story 42. Child predators should be sent straight to prison, and when they die, they should face eternal consequences. The same applies to animal abusers. Story 43. People who generally lack empathy and do not understand manipulation do not see the other person's point of view. Story 44. My former best friend. I told her I would need her support after I found out my dog had cancer, and then she ghosted me for months. I will never forgive her. Story 45. People who intentionally hurt others or animals are unacceptable to me. Someone who inflicts harm on another being, especially a vulnerable one, holds no value in my eyes. Story 46. People who hurt innocents, such as children, animals, and individuals with disabilities, demonstrate selfishness and cruelty. There is no justification for their actions. Story 47. People are unable to assume responsibility. Mistakes happen, but you have to own them, learn from them, and deal with the consequences. I cannot stand individuals who are unable to admit they were wrong and never try to repair or undo the damage. It is infuriating. When you take responsibility for your actions, you are already halfway to being forgiven. If you do not, even the smallest mistakes will be held against you for the rest of your life. Story 48. My former best friend informed everyone about my miscarriage before I was ready to discuss it. 6 years later, I still cannot bring myself to forgive her. Story 49. If you are struggling with intrusive thoughts of harming others, I fully support seeking therapy and help. These thoughts can be addressed and managed. However, it is concerning when individuals act on such impulses. Story 50. People who publicly humiliate others lose my respect completely, and I can't view them the same way. This is different from defending oneself. Story 51. Adults who hurt children. I never felt a capacity for extreme levels of violence until my first child was born. I became acutely aware of all the pain inflicted on children in this world. And in that moment, I discovered that I would bury a person if they ever hurt my babies. The lowest of the low. I am a very nonviolent person, by the way. I catch and release bugs in my house or sometimes just leave them alone. I believe in the capacity for violence, not the propensity for it. Story 52. Those who completely lack self-awareness regarding how they hurt others. Not only did you hurt me, but I have to explain exactly what you did, only for you to respond, I didn't mean to, as if that changes any of your actual behavior, with absolutely no remorse. Please leave me alone. Story 53. I'm actively forgetting everything and can't hold grudges anymore. It's fantastic and has increased my quality of life more than I could ever imagine. I still get angry on the spot, but it's getting easier to manage. Story 54. It may sound cliché, but any voter supporting Trump 2.0 is beyond my forgiveness this time. There is no excuse. Additionally, there is the usual assortment of disturbing individuals. Rapists, child molesters, pet owners with monkeys, and, of course, any person who feels the need to inform me about the reasons for my damnation. And then there are those who put ketchup on hot dogs. Unusual. Story 55. People like my mother-in-law who abandon loving children for politicians. During COVID-19, we found out my husband had cancer. He had to get vaccinated before starting chemotherapy, and the whole family had to as well. It was just part of the process. Since my husband is under 50, we listened to the doctor and did what we were asked to do. I had been a stay-at-home mom but took a labor job in heavy highway construction to compensate for my husband's lost income as a commercial diver. My mother-in-law told us the vaccine would kill us and that she couldn't visit because of it. In fact, she hasn't been near us since we got vaccinated years ago. She never cared. She claimed the doctors were lying about his diagnosis and that he'd be fine. My daughter was 8 years old at the time, and we have a very small family as I'm an orphan, and his family came over because of the war and its impact on Poland. Not once did her grandmother give her the support she needed. I worked long days in construction, yet she isn't proud of us for persevering. Instead, she's disgusted with us. She tells my husband how sad he makes her. All this for politics. This week, she even dismissed the Pope. I cannot forgive these politicians who are doing this to people, telling them this is the way and that it's acceptable. I can't forgive them for the sadness and misery they joyfully cause. You don't discard people based on how they vote. It's madness. Story 56. Regardless of whether you forgive or not, those who struggle with forgiveness are often individuals who recognized early on that people are not ignorant of their actions. They have simply decided that their interests are far superior to what you consider precious feelings, adhering to the mindset that the game is the game. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.